Meeting. Thank you very much for coming out to Wolverhampton this morning. I'm going to kick off the agenda item 1, apologies for absence. We've had a number of apologies received already. I'll read out those names, and just bear with me. So that's, we've had apologies from Councillor Joe Baker from Redditch, Councillor John Cotton from Birmingham. He's been substituted by Councillor Jane Francis today. We've had an apology from Councillor Ian Davison from Warwick, from Councillor Susan Jued from Stratford-on-Avon, Councillor Abdul Khan from Coventry, Councillor Paul Moore from Sandwell, Councillor Leslie Picton from Shropshire, Councillor Bob Slade, who today has been substituted by Councillor Karen Prince-Hall from Solihull. Welcome, Karen. And also an apology from Councillor Chris Watkins from Nuneaton and Bedworth. Are there any other apologies for us to record in the minutes? Okay, thank you, George. Sorry. Okay, thank you very much. Is he? Councillor Kerry Carmichael. Thank you, Peter. Okay, in that case, I will now move on to Item 2, declarations of interest. Does any member want to declare a personal interest in any of the items being discussed today? If they do so, can they please say so now? Okay, no apologies. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to Item 3, Chair's remarks. Before we start the formal items today, I just would like to for everyone to acknowledge the length of the briefing pack at this meeting. You'll know that when I was elected, I made a pledge and a commitment to reduce the size of the board papers so they were more accessible to everyone, and in an effort to encourage as many people as possible to read them. Unfortunately, just because of our statutory obligations, there are a lot more papers being presented today than I would like or we would normally receive. But I just wanted to reassure everyone that my commitment to accessibility remains undiminished. But we just got the statutory obligations to fulfil today, is why the pack is so detailed. Also, for those of you who might want to contact me next week, from tomorrow for a week, I'm leading a Department of Business and Trade mission to China, so I won't be accessible. I'm not allowed to take my mobile phone. So if anyone does need to contact me in my office next week, please go through the team at the Combined Authority. We will be still managing the office whilst I'm away, and I will be calling back to the UK at least once a day to deal with anything urgent. So I'll try to be as accessible as I can next week, but just bear with me if you need to speak to me urgently. It's simply not possible. So thank you. Now move on to item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of February 2025. These are enclosed in your pack. Does anyone have any points of accuracy to raise, or can we agree that the minutes are a correct record of the meeting? Okay, agreed. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to move on to item 5, regional activity. So I've spent the last month or so building a case for growth and investment with government, and we've been presenting that case informally to government in preparation for the spending review announcement in June this year. And I'm really pleased to say that we now have a very exciting portfolio of major sites across the region that government are now engaging on us with, and they are attracting considerable interest and attention across Whitehall and Westminster. And those range from the Green Innovation Corridor here in Wolverhampton through to some major sites in the centre of Birmingham and out through to Arden Cross in Solihull. And I'm really pleased with the progress we've made on the ground in the way we're presenting those sites and exciting government about them. Earlier this week, I was in number 10 Downing Street with the leader of Birmingham City Council, John Cotton, and Tom Wagner, the owner of Birmingham City Football Club. Tom is committing between £2.5 billion and £3 billion to the sports quarter in Birmingham, and we met senior folks from Number 10 to discuss that investment and the opportunity to not just invest in infrastructure to unlock that development, but the prospects of linking a metro line from HS2 through that site out to Arden Cross, which is now firmly on our agenda and that of government. And I'm really pleased with the conversations we have. There is further work to do to build that case, but the opportunity to unlock homes, jobs and connect almost 300,000 people in one of the poorest parts of East Birmingham and North Solihull to job opportunities, growth opportunities, is pivotal to our plan for growth. So thank you to all the leaders across the region that have supported that work, and for your enthusiasm and your commitment to driving that growth forward. One of the issues I have spoken to a number of the leaders about over the last few weeks is the absence or the limits on our capacity to deliver major strategic projects across this region. So I am looking to work with councils and council leaders across the region to put in place a major projects team that will work with me and our councils to deliver and drive forward and enforce delivery of those major projects. Some of the officers at the CA are working up some thinking on that, which we'll share with you, but I'm really keen to draw on as much capacity and expertise we've got across our councils as possible to support the delivery of those major projects. And the feedback from Westminster and Whitehall is key to getting further government support for those projects will need an explanation from us and a case from us that demonstrates our capacity and wherewithal to deliver them. So enormous responsibility for us, but if we can do that, I think we can give government, probably the first time for a decade or more, the confidence that we have the wherewithal to deliver those major projects from across this region. In terms of some of the work already that we've succeeded on, just to bring you up to date, I'm really pleased that the lobbying campaigning we've done with Homes England has freed up some additional grant money that will allow Coventry City Centre South regeneration project to be completed. There was a shortage of funds available for affordable housing there, so I'm really pleased that the work we've done with Government and Homes England. I applaud the team at Coventry City Council for the way they've worked with me and others to secure that funding. And also, I'd like to thank Ian Courts for the work he's done on driving forward and reigniting interest in Arden Cross. We had a really good dinner at the end of last month, hosted in Birmingham, and it would not be, probably not quite correct to say we made more progress in the 5 hours over that dinner than we had in the last 5 years, but there is now a clear intention, a project spec being developed and a real ambition to deliver that project with some very important stakeholders. So thank you, Ian, for that work and the visit you arranged at the subsequent day. I'm looking forward to working with you and your team at Solihull to deliver that project. And it goes without saying that Arden Cross is one of those major projects that we're engaging government on. And also, thank you to Councillor Adrian Andrew of Walsall. We visited the Spark site in Walsall, adjacent to the M6 recently. It's a fantastic regeneration project, bringing poor quality brownfield land into employment land, and it's going to deliver lots of jobs there and open up, I think, opportunities for many people across Walsall as a new modern logistic hub for the region. I know it's attracted a lot of interest, and there's still too many sites like that across the Black Country in Walsall, and we'll continue to drive forward our investment in those sites going forward. I just wanted to mention one other benefit we've seen recently. I know there's an item 8 on the agenda on the benefits of the single settlement, but already, using the flexibilities, the freedoms we've got, we've been able to secure with Coventry City Council the continued operation of the job shop there in Coventry City Centre that's doing so much to help people back into work and support their employment opportunities. So I'm really pleased with the progress we've made strategically across the region over the last few weeks, and certainly since the board meeting. And I'd also like to reiterate that every part of this region is equally important to me, and I think that the progress we've seen across the region is something I'm very thankful for. It couldn't have been achieved with enormous amount of cooperation and collaboration. And that brings my remarks on this agenda item to an end. Does anyone else want to raise anything or make any comments? Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll move on now to item 6, the financial monitoring report. Now, we've got quite a heavy agenda today, so I've always encouraged during our conversations and meetings full debate as possible, but I will need to marshal the agenda items a bit more carefully today because of the issues we need to discuss. So I'm very happy to encourage conversations, but we might need in some cases be a bit more brutal in terms of time management. So we're now moving on to item 6, the financial monitoring report for 24-25, month 10. This report provides an update on the Combined Authority's finances at the 31st of January this year, and an update on the recently completed financial forecast and the risks facing the organisation. Can I ask Linda Horn, the Executive Director of Finance and the Business Hub, to present this report? Thank you, Linda.
Thank you very much. So this is the final financial monitoring report for the current year. The next report will be out for the year end against this forecast in the June board. I'm pleased to report that following the final quarter detailed reforecast, we have increased our surplus with a further 1.2 million against our expenditure. With recommendations in the report to ring-fence this alongside some previously declared forecasts on the spend, to fund a 1.1 million contribution to detailed creative industry targeted intervention, and the establishment of a 0.9 million regional pot for West Midlands chief executives to use in targeting regional policy work, as well as £250,000 capped contribution to deliver the Mayor's Investment Summit in June. That relates to the surplus that's declared against the expenditure. In addition, I'm also pleased to report the final quarter Treasury windfall of additional income we have successfully managed to generate as an authority through careful and robust cash management and borrowing activity at £8 million. This report recommends ring-fence of these funds at £5 million for digital investment required as part of the authority's transformation programme, with the aim to drive future efficiency savings in organisational operations. It also recommends ring-fence of £1 million targeted funds for WMCA activities in relation to high streets and road safety to help support the delivery of the Mayor Manifesto commitments. And finally, it recommends an allocation of £2 million separate funding for the Mayor's Manifesto delivery in collaboration with the leaders. It should be noted that the approval of these allocations is to ring-fence these funds for these targeted purposes. It is not asking for delegation to spend. All spend will continue to be subject to usual governance assurance, oversight, controls and monitoring. The report also notes the use of a further 2.8 million programme headroom within the CRS-CS1 allocation to accommodate cost pressures to complete the interchange project. And finally, there is a governance requirement for you to approve the local evaluation framework submission, which is a critical part of the WMCA's accountability to government. I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you, Linda. Are there any points or questions anyone wishes to raise on this item this morning? Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, paragraph 2.17, which shows that we've had £5 million gain in February mathematics since January. We might start to consider short payment. And the other thing is we're showing it close to earmark reserves. We've also indicated that there's already a substantial amount of earmark reserves.
Peter, could you just move your mic just closer to, yeah, your...
There's a large scale earmark reserve already exists of over 370 million. Do you think that the board should be reviewing this at any stage?
Linda.
So I operate a full close every month end, which means every time you see this report, you have a balance sheet appended, which includes all the positions on reserves. Obviously, the total earmark reserves will be made up of all sorts of things like grants and advance, etc. But it will also include, as you say, where the earmark for specific purposes. I've got a full breakdown of those, and they're in the balance sheet, which we can share. But essentially, in this current year, we've reported to date that we've managed to deliver around £21 million worth of additional treasury income from the investments cash that we've been managing, which we allocated into the earmark reserve from this business financial resilience and risk. In terms of then this further £8 million, actually that is not disproportionate to what we've managed to get over the full financial year. And essentially, it's made up of a few items which essentially be how we're managing the cash. So as the capital programme perhaps is not drawing as much cash as we expected in the first place, I'm holding more cash, which means I'm actually under borrowed, if you like, from an authority point of view. So I'm not actually borrowing, I'm using our internal cash to save me debt charge income, and I've also rescheduled some existing debt to actually start saving about £6 million this year as well, by rescheduling some existing debt as well. So the amount I'm carrying now is not out of context from the amount. So if you look on the balance sheet, we're carrying about £800 million worth of cash. So I mean, it's a good return. I'm getting a good return.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Linda. Councillor Courts. Councillor Courts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a question. It sort of relates to this agenda item, but the next one as well. And the question is in relation to page 32 on the Sprint programme. Now, the Sprint programme I'm not sure which base it is, but that connects currently is projected to go from Walsall to the city centre and then to BHX to the airport and whatever. Now, there's another proposal that goes from Birmingham to Solihull Town Centre. To me, we've dropped the ball here. There needs to be connection from Birmingham Airport through to the town centre and through to South Birmingham as well, because I think some parts of Birmingham have exactly the same problems that we have. Now, I'm not clear what is included in that programme, and whatever is included, this to me needs to, you know, most of the infrastructure is going to be there, at least for the first stage of it. We really need to be saying, well, what can we do here and now to connect those people with jobs from the airport through to the town centre and onwards. And I would really like to make sure to understand, well, when this will happen, but can we make it happen quickly, please, for those communities?
Thank you, Ian, for that. I will ask, perhaps I'm sure Leanne could respond to that one. Thank you.
Yes, so just to confirm that the section of Sprint that would run through to the airport, so all going through Solihull into the airport as well, is in the pipeline, it's in development stages. I will come back to Council Courts on the dates within one of our regular sessions. And of course, we're working with Solihull colleagues on where the current Sprint programme is being delivered through Solihull, also in terms of what the opportunities are for any sort of further connectivity following on from that as well. But the detail, I think, we'll bring it back to Council Courts in a separate session that would hopefully answer those questions.
Mr. I've raised this on a number of occasions, and Anne has issued it, but the point I want to make is that most of the infrastructure, certainly as far as BHX to the town centre, is going to be in. It's just whether a bus turns left. I know it's not as simple as that, but I'm not asking for a big capital commitment here. I just want us to, you know, meet our objectives to increase connectivity.
Understood, Councillor Courts, and I'm as keen as you are to make sure that particular project is a priority for the reasons you clearly set out. Thank you, Councillor Courts. Councillor Huxtable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and it's on a very similar point because the funding for it is allocated under page 25 of the report. And as you can see, compared to many other schemes, the funding is minuscule. and I think full year the budget is only 125,000, and only 42,000 of that 125,000 is proposed to be actually spent at the end of the year, which is various of 83,000. And obviously, being a councillor for Hall Green, it's very keen on my agenda as well. But from a more strategic viewpoint, Councillor Court is absolutely right. It's a critical bit of infrastructure. It does so many things because not only is it going from Hall Green to the proposed high-speed 2 interchange, it basically creates that north-south Solihull link because it runs through, or is proposed to run through Solihull railway station and Solihull town centre, providing that integrated connectivity. So this is one of the things that when we had the meeting of TDOS members with you at the end of April, I was going to raise, and I've forewarned your office, I was going to raise that, because as Councillor Courts has said, it's not only connectivity for north-south Solihull links, which I heard about at the Transport Roundtable only last week from the Solihull Chamber of Commerce, but also it serves parts of South Birmingham which aren't well served in terms of the bus network and is completely left out of the cross-city bus proposals that are being taken forward by Transport for West Midlands.
Thank you, Councillor Huxtable. I think, I fully support the comments you've made and Councillor Court has made. We'll get to briefing from Combined Authority, Transport team, and let's all of us work together to make this particular project the priority it needs to be. Thank you. Are there any other? Councillor Burrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Linda, I appreciated your comment to say that the £8 million of the other ring fence money would be go through the normal processes. I'd appreciated that could actually be put in the minutes, because it was going to be a question I've asked, and people have asked me. If that could go in the minutes, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Of course, Councillor Burrow. Thank you. Councillor Simpkins.
It's just on that point, I think it's subject to all the governance procedures and it'll be scrutinised. So there's openness and transparency. They've got to ask questions, but it's got to be the material benefit for the whole of the region, not just about Birmingham and the town centre and Solihull. What does it mean as a transport question with regards to Black Country, Wolverhampton, Walsall? Walsall's severely underserved by transport infrastructure. So we need an holistic approach to transport, and that's what we should be all endeavouring to do.
Thank you, Councillor Simpkins. You're absolutely right. To be absolutely clear, everything I'm doing and committed to will be for the benefit of the whole region, and no major decisions will be made without following proper governance procedures and the support of members of the board. Thank you. Okay, if there are no other further comments, could I move you all then to the recommendations on page 7 of the report? Are these agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 7, the 2025-26 consolidated budget proposals. This report seeks approval for the consolidated revenue proposals and the indicative capital budgets for the fiscal year 2025-26. The Combined Authority has statutory obligations to set a balanced budget, and this report forms a key part of that budget setting and approval process. Additionally, the report sets out the medium-term outlook for the Combined Authority and the steps that need to be taken to ensure that position is sustainable, and there is ongoing work in that regard being led by the Executive Director of Finance and the Business Hub. I'd at this point like to ask Linda Horn, the Executive Director of Finance and Business Hub, to present this particular report. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you very much. So I'm really pleased to be able to present the proposed balanced budget totaling 1.2 billion of revenue and capital spend for the region for the 25-26 financial year. The report is a consolidation of much work, discussion and decisions for yourself over the past 9 months. It brings together the decisions by this board in February in regards to local funding and amalgamates this with the regional government funds specifically for the integrated settlement for this region. The report contains the necessary assurance from myself as a Section 73 officer in relation to the robustness of the estimates that this budget contains, along with the adequacy of our reserves. The budget protects all of our existing local policies, as well as investing further in impactful and targeted outcomes for the region and our citizens. And the details of the funded activity are set out fully in Appendix 5. Whilst we're presenting a balanced budget to March 26, it is acknowledged that the authority continues to need to address its medium-term financial pressures, and the first discussion on this is scheduled to speak with yourselves and the Mayor on the 11th of April. With apologies again for the length of the document, which you will appreciate contains a number of statutory documents and policies around Treasury management and authorities' capital and pace policy. In addition, I've also included comments from the authority's own review and scrutiny committee and TDOS that arose from the Mayor's budget questions held on the 27th of January for information. I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you, Linda. Are there any points or questions people would like to raise at this point on this report? Councillor Huxtable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Paragraph 2.17 on page 43 talks about the use of the 87.6 million of the one-off network stability grant. Now, I'm assuming this network stability grant is the money we got from Network North in October 2023 as a part of the reprofiling of High Speed to North. My question is, as it's a one-off network stability grant as outlined in the second bullet point on page 43, what is going to happen in future years, because it's not going to exist any longer if it's a one-off. And allied to that, given if this board in turn agrees to bus franchising and the 22.5 million that the reports say it is going to cost us, how are we going to fund that 22.5 million for all the things we would want to do in terms of bus franchising, and where is it in this report in terms of the process? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Huxtable, for those questions. I will bring in Linda to reply to some of the technical issues, but I would like to also restate what I've said at previous board meetings. The funding that was committed in 2023 was neither in the budget or any budget papers that were inherited by the new government and the previous government, either in the Treasury or in the DFT. The discussions we had with the government in the budget last year were to ensure we secured funding that would otherwise have resulted in our bus network being cut back very, very severely. So we've got a position that is it is short term that has helped us for the next financial year. But I just want to be really, really clear that the £250 million or so that was announced by the previous government regarding long-term support was part of the £22 billion black hole that the government inherited. But Linda, on the specifics of bus franchising, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you. So, yes, we have got a combined total pot from government of 116 million to take us through the 24-25 and 25-26 financial year. So we're using in total 116 million pounds worth of one-off grants to take us through to balance this budget to March 26. You're absolutely correct. We have a medium-term financial issue that's detailed in the report. We can scale that gap into fundamental conversation through this board and through leaders. As I said earlier, that first scheduled conversation post approval of the budget this year is scheduled with the leaders on the 11th of April. Now that will bring together the position both in terms of the medium-term plan and the financial strategy and options that we have as a region to reduce that gap and to plug that gap. It will also then align into the decision that will be coming to board, I think in May, around bus franchising. Because clearly that needs to be wrapped in, because the affordability around bus franchising and what we can buy, what network we can buy, will depend on how much local money we have. So the two are absolutely connected during this year. And then we will be taking this through leaders on the 11th of April back through to make sure that is absolutely clear through into the main report. The main report will also address where we would be able to fund that 22.5 million from.
Thank you, Linda. There is still a great amount of work to do regarding the financing and the financial planning. We are making good progress, but there still remains a lot of details we work through. Councillor Court.
Yes, just to say, I appreciate there are meetings coming on. I don't want to go into discussion about franchising. I'm pretty clear on my view in December that, you know, we all want the best services. It's just how we do it and making sure the numbers stack up. But what I want to say now is that we really need to give maximum attention to saying how we can both build up and project a network that is attractive and increases patronage, because the solution to our problems is not constantly saying let's cut or change. It's through getting more people on the buses and making it attractive and doing that market-facing job. And I should be looking increasingly as to how the proposals will do that.
Thank you, Councillor Courts, and all your contributions to this debate today. You're absolutely right about what we need to do. I look forward to working with you, and it will be up to us as leaders to take some responsibilities for doing exactly that, and also working closely with the government if we do need additional support going forward. But the bus network is the heart of our transport system here in the West Midlands. 80% of the people in this region that use public transport use the bus network, and we need to encourage more people to use it, and it's one of the great ways we can lift the prosperity of people living across this region. I'm going to bring Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Simpkins.
One of the biggest risks to the medium-term financial plan is the reduction in income from 26-27. So with that, if you and the combined authority lobbying for more money from the government, and also looking at running down the reserve, which is programmed in, what are we doing in terms of spending control, thinking every local authority is actually going through that situation? What is the combined authority that it's going to be looking at in terms of reduction in spending?
Okay, would you want to pick up on that point, Linda?
Yes. So members may recall back in over the summer when the certainty over the uncertainty over the 250 million started to become clearer, that Laura's chief executive alongside myself put in some extra scrutiny panel, internal scrutiny panels within the organisation, both looking at the resourcing, so how we resource, and whether or not we're challenging each and every post, whether or not it needs to be increased to, how it's being increased, and equally we have a similar panel that operates myself and both of them around actually looking at fuel. Making sure that we are this is absolutely a priority for us, and that is absolutely aligned and connected across the organisation so that we're doing this as professionally as possible. Those panels have continued despite the fact that I've got balanced budget now. We are continuing with those panels. In addition, the change and transformation programme that Laura is leading, alongside the investment, will build targets in there in terms of delivering some operational efficiencies to be informed as an organisation. So those controls are continuing despite that, because, as you say, because of the medium-term sustainability issue. And again, I don't want to preempt the conversation that we'll have on that in this forum, but we will be taking the proposals and the financial strategy options through leaders on the 11th of April into
Thank you, Linda. Councillor Simpkins.
Yeah, it's just to remind everybody that there is a public consultation for bus franchising. It might be finished or it's due to finish. And I think we need to consider strongly what the paper said about bus franchising. It says, and it clearly states, it's the best value for money moving forward. Now, everybody knows it's going to be difficult for us to transition, and that's where it is. There's a transition. So I will wait until we have notice of the consultation. But the central point is it's best value for money. And that's what should be the guiding principle for us all in the combined authority, is we get value for money for all our residents moving forward. And also, I'd like to note that the Mayor himself was looking at the reorganisation of the organisation, which is what we call back, because we do that quite regularly in local government, and we need to be accountable for every single penny, not pound, in the combined authority. We also need to make sure that we apply that value for money criteria. Wherever sensible, welcome the transition. We're in different times. We can talk about money that's come from HS2, but quite frankly, when I've looked at it, it's more like monopoly money. So let's wait. Let's see what the consultation says. Let's support the Mayor in the principle and the guiding principle that I've championed for many years with regards to bus franchising, coming back to the people. Power to the people is what we're staying all around to. So welcome that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Simpkins, and other contributions, and also to Councillor Court for the point he raised about we're not just going to be in a position of inheriting what we've got now. We've got to promote it and advocate for it and ensure that we encourage as many people as possible to use the buses. And we can do that if we've got more routes connecting more people to places of work, the high streets, college, and if it's a form of transport where it's increasingly safe in terms of using it. So thank you very much for those contributions. I'm going to now move on to the recommendations. Can I now move the 15 recommendations printed on page 38 of the report? Are these agreed? Agreed. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 8 is on the integrated settlement. This report seeks approval of, I don't want to get too technical, the functional strategies that will be used to invest funding with each of the pillars, the 5 pillars of the integrated settlement, and those are the policy priority areas that will be used to drive prosperity for our people across the region and deliver the outcomes that have been agreed with government. I'm really pleased that already we've seen an immediate benefit of those freedoms. I referred to that earlier with the work being done by the combined authority officers and the really good work of officers at Coventry City Council and the leader of the City Council, Councillor George Duggins, to ensure that the job shop in Coventry remains open and thriving, irrespective of some cuts that it had to face, which is, again, a very good early sign and signal of the benefits that already the integrated settlement are delivering. Can I at this point ask the Executive Director of Strategy, Economy and Net Zero, that's Ed Cox, at the Combined Authority to present this report. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The integrated settlement represents, I think, one of the most major milestones in the short lifetime of this combined authority. It also represents a baby step for central government as it learns to let go and let our city regions drive the growth that this country so desperately needs. We've been talking about the integrated settlement now for a couple of years, and you've already just agreed the consolidated budget of which the integrated settlement is a key part. And this report then sets out more details of that integrated settlement. In this first year, it totals about £389,000. It brings together over million pounds, forgive me, and it brings together over 20 different funding streams that historically would have come to us in individual grant agreements, each with their own strings attached, each with their own monitoring and evaluation arrangements, each with their own overheads, and in some cases each with a huge amount of time that we and local authority officers need to commit to bidding for those funds. So it's a huge step forward in terms of the way in which we can work, both as a combined authority, but also in your local authorities as well. The funding, as you've said, is split across 5 pillars, and each pillar has a small number of outcomes, 10 across the whole piece. We've developed 5 functional strategies which set out how these funds are going to be allocated, and each of those functional strategies is based on existing strategies that have been approved by this combined authority board. Each functional strategy also explains how it's going to support the place-based strategies that each local authority has been developing over the past year. And I want to take this opportunity to thank local authority colleagues for the highly collaborative approach that we've been able to adopt over the past couple of years in bringing forward the way in which the integrated settlement is going to work. The recent independent readiness check that's been undertaken on behalf of the government in looking at whether we are able to take on the integrated settlement has highlighted in particular the collaborative approach that we've adopted here in the West Midlands as being one of the real strengths that we have achieved to get us to this particular point. If the board approves this overall framework, then there will be a number of subsequent decisions that will be required to release funding via the approval of individual business cases and change requests, and some of those will come up as subsequent items on today's agenda. I want to thank the board and a range of wider stakeholders for their patience and their endeavour as we've had to painstakingly work through lots of technical detail to make sure that this new system is going to be fair and is going to operate effectively for the region. But it's really important, I think, amidst all the technical detail, to keep our eyes on the prize. To give you a few examples, the Mayor's already mentioned one of them. The flexibility that we now have around growth funding, for example, will enable us to fund initiatives like the Job Shop in Coventry. The flexibility that we will have around housing funding, for example, will make it much easier to be able to bring forward schemes that would be otherwise unviable had we stuck to the kind of approach that has been developed in the past. The flexibility that we'll get around the new retrofit funding, which we'll talk about later, will enable you and your local authorities and our registered providers to develop your own pipelines of retrofit and supply chains in your local areas, rather than waste time in countless competitive bidding rounds for very small amounts of money. The flexibility that we will get around growth funding will enable us to focus and target our support on the needs of particular high energy intensive businesses in the back country, for example. So all of this flexibility will make a huge change to the way in which we can deploy our funding in new ways. The integrated settlement is stripping away central government bureaucracy, putting choice and flexibility and responsibility back into our hands, and making it much easier, I hope, to serve our local communities. If you approve this, we will now have to prove to government that we can deliver it, but I would certainly recommend this paper to the board.
Thank you very much. A couple of points I just want to raise with you all before I take any points or questions. Firstly, I think it's imperative on all of us as we start to apply a single settlement in our places that we record and collect data that allows us to demonstrate the beneficial impact of having these freedoms compared to the previous way of working. That's key to proving the point of the case. And also, I'll be keen to listen to the views of all leaders in this room and chief officers around any further work we need to do to simplify the processes of drawing down funds from the combined authority to your councils. We want to remove every level of unnecessary bureaucracy that holds up delivery and stops us delivering for the people of this region. So that's all I wanted to say at this point, but can I take any points or questions from Okay, firstly, I'll go to Councillor Perry from Walsall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of points. So, whilst I welcome the report and recognise this is a transitional year for funding, I think it's across local government. Just a couple of points. Earlier this week, the local government minister referenced the ability of mayors to introduce the mayoral precept to raise additional resources for funding of some of the things that we've referenced today. Is it your intention to introduce the mayoral precepts? If so, when? And on what basis do you intend to use the funds that will be raised via that? In addition to that, obviously think about the demolition bill. Of course, there may be a police and fire precept included within that offer, which obviously we all know that the council tax is a self-tax for many of our residents, and you're already a burden with the trying to balance the 4.1% average council tax increase against the cost of living. In terms of the functional strategies, again, I recognise they are important to how this combined authority delivers against its priorities and to outcomes. There are some areas of concern for me, I think, as we move forward, because our place-based strategies are the guiding documents, and all of those, as far as I see, we need further clarity on the functional strategy in terms of the ability to deliver. They should be your enabling documents, and those pillars should help bring life into the place-based strategies, not cause more bureaucracy. So we want for us to watch as we move forward, but also making sure that each local authority are very much co-designing that approach and not a document that's produced here and then sent to us for a nod through. And I think that's what we need to be very clear on as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. On the issue of functional strategies, you're right, it's really important that they're built bottom up, and we continually need to review their effectiveness implementation. Whilst it's absolutely right that they are built bottom up, it's also critically important that as a region we get some wider economies of scale from those interventions. So what the really important thing I think for all of us is, of course we have to deliver fewer places, but we would be failing our duty, I think, if we didn't look at ways that we can align some of the priorities across the region from councils to ensure we're delivering more effectively, whether that's on growth or skills or housing. On the issue of the mayoral precept, you'll be the first to know, Councillor Perry, if ever move forward with one, but at this point there won't be one in the next financial year, and I've not made any commitment or any conversations about what will be required in the future. We need to work through our medium-term financial strategy, work with the government, and look at our priorities, assess what we need to do to ensure that the finances and combined authority in this region are put on a stable and sustainable financial footing for the future. Thank you very much. And I believe Councillor Evans from Wolverhampton wanted to.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to pick up on item 2.12 in this report. And I know we're going to discuss this in a later paper, but I just wanted to get a point of clarity and put a stake in the ground, so to speak. On the net zero, the building retrofit pilot, we know it's a pilot, and we know it's going to cost hundreds of millions to bring our non-traditional properties or fuel-poor properties up to the correct or desired EPC rating, not just for the benefits of the environment, but certainly for the people who live in those properties. But I am concerned when it talks about the private renting sector, and I think it's well established and factual knowledge that renting in the private sector is often 2, 3 or even 4 times more expensive than social rents. And I would wish to see any funding being taken away from much needed projects that local authorities oversee, or fuel pure residents going into the private rented sector who've probably got more than enough money and should actually be bringing those properties up to the desired standards. I'm just seeking assurance that we're not giving away what little bits of grant funding that we managed to obtain to an already possibly or potentially wealthy private sector compared to housing revenue accounts for social housing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Evans. I'll ask Ed to come back in, but my understanding is it will be councils on the ground that will prioritise the homes that receive the benefit of this investment. So I'm hoping that will remove the issue that you raised, Councillor Evans, and it's a point that I am entirely supportive of. But Ed, did you want to come in to clarify the points made by Councillor Evans?
You're exactly right. I think it's up for each local authority to be able to determine exactly what the pipeline of properties is that it wants to apply energy efficiency measures to. I think what this does, though, as I said earlier, is give flexibility to local authorities to decide which properties they think should be prioritised. That means that, unlike the current pepper potting of retrofit that we see at the moment on individual properties in different streets across the whole authority, if it were the case that a local authority wanted to bring forward an entire street to be retrofitted, which could deliver some significant economies of scale, and that street happens to include private rental properties, then it will be for the local authority to include that within its pipeline. There is a reference in the report to 1.1 million of the total that is being allocated to local authorities, but that is for the enforcement of housing quality standards on private rented properties, which we know is a key problem. So that will be double devolved to the local authorities in order to ensure that enforcement and to encourage private renters to be able to apply for retrofit funds.
Okay, thank you for that, Ed. I think there's something else, Councillor Evans, I think is really important beyond the councils having or being the final arbiters, is that we must ensure when we are spending and procuring such large amounts of work from businesses retrofitting these homes, that part of that package puts an obligation on them to upskill and retrain and employ particularly young people that need work in the boroughs that we represent. So I think it's really important we look at this procurement in the broadest possible way in terms of benefits that are not just delivered to people's homes, but also the opportunity to create jobs and upskill large numbers of our workforce. Councillor Hughes, and I'll come to Councillor Huxtable, and then we'll move this item on. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the integrated settlement was a right step forward for the environmental authority, but it's not the be-all and end-all of things. And one of the major issues that Petters stand by is the lack of access to funding to shore up commercial and industrial schemes in the back country, which, very often involve contaminated land. So what reassurances can we have that we'll be looking at this either during the settlement or for the future in terms of helping us with the commercial and industrial schemes?
Okay, Councillor Hughes, we need to continue. We've got greater freedoms, flexibilities under the single settlement, the integrated settlement, how you use funds. So on the ground in Sandwell, you'll have the ability to redirect resources. But also, I think as part of our submission to the spending review, we'll be looking for additional funds in the future, particularly to address some of those issues you face in the backcountry, where the nature of the land contamination is reducing the opportunities to create more employment sites to create the jobs that Sandwell so desperately needs. Thank you. I'm now going to go. There are a few more. We'll let everyone speak, and then we'll move on. I think it's I had Councillor Huxtable next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. On page 178 to para 2.17, we talk about place-based strategies, and the East Birmingham and North Central Grade Zone is referenced. Given your earlier remarks about the NITEC development and the sports stadium complex in terms of economic growth, and also the work going on at Arden Cross in terms of unlocking economic growth, it seems to me sensible that there be an overview and scrutiny role in terms of looking at future transport links whether it's Metro, whether it's Crossing Bus, whether it's Sprint, within that East Birmingham and North Solihull Roadso, and I would very much welcome your support and input into that piece of overview and scrutiny work. The second point I wanted to make, also 2.17, you referenced Langley in terms of the future housing development. As I've made mention, Langley sits aside the Sutton Park line, building on the work on Transport for West Midlands and the West Midlands Rail Executive in terms of the new station study and looking at Aldridge, a new railway station, Aldridge, and a new railway station at Chatham Bromwich, and also linked to the very exciting Wrexham, Shropshire and Midlands Railway open access proposal, which I think is sitting for consideration by Department for Transport and Network Rail, which I believe the West Midlands Rail Executive has approved in principle. And given the comments also from the scrutiny board at Walsall, which I attended only last evening, it would seem sensible that a piece of work be done looking at all that and combining that in one piece of work, given all these exciting new developments, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Huxtable. We are working with leaders on an economic plan to deliver growth for this region, and as that develops, we will share some of the outcomes with you, and at the appropriate point in time, I'm very happy to speak to scrutiny around those plans and those projects, and subject myself to any questions that you want to raise at that time. Thank you very much. Councillor Courts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to put up a few markers in. I mean, you sort of said earlier on that this is an incredible achievement, this integrated settlement, and I think it's very important that we know what success looks like very quickly, because I'm sort of conscious that the money's less, seems to have gone down a bit, and we need to be able to demonstrate that we can deliver in this region, and that's why it's so important we do this successfully. And I think the tribute, to be honest, is to the officers involved over such a long period with this complex matter with government. This is no mean achievement to have set up this highest infrastructure. I would ask, I don't need an answer now, but how are we going to monitor how the money is best spent? Are we going to have some performance indicators as to, tracking, are we up to date or not, and how all those things are doing? I think there's an issue about where the money is best spent. I mean, there's reference, we're talking about top slicing, and it all sort of worries me, this stuff, a little bit, because I think there's teams in the region, and there's teams in the local authorities, and the teams in the local authorities are all short of cash, and we are going to be desperately wanting to make sure that the money is spent most effectively, that we don't have duplication, and that the money needs to follow where the effort needs to be. And that may be painful for some people, so I do hope that we're going to track this very, very carefully for the benefit of the local authorities involved. So I think that's probably it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Courts, and I would like to reiterate my thanks to all the officers that have worked so diligently on delivering the integrated settlement for the West Midlands. I know how much work it's taken at a time when resources are in limited supply, and it's now up for us all as political leaders in this region to demonstrate the benefits of these freedoms and flexibilities to deliver for our people. And Councillor Courts, you're absolutely correct. Our duty, we are now duty bound to demonstrate the benefits that we're delivering through the greater freedoms and flexibilities we have, and we have to account for that funding in the most appropriate way and be very clear about the additional benefits we're delivering, and we need to measure those, and we need to, if you like, complete the feedback loop by ensuring that once we're monitoring what we're doing, if it's not delivering what we think or hoped it would, we need to reflect on that and look at ways we realign our resources or recalibrate our approach to deliver, and that needs to be built in to the delivery plan. In terms of everyone in this room has been from the outset really clear about my priorities, about ensuring we remove every level of unnecessary decision making and bureaucracy, the way we We do our work. Delivery is my absolute priority, and it's absolutely essential across every tier of government in this region that we are using every resource as effectively as possible. I'm committed in ensuring that as much delivery as possible is made through and with our councils. You are closer to the ground and understand the needs of your residents better than I do, and we need to continue to work at that to demonstrate we are living or committing committing to and delivering on the commitments I've made previously. I'm now going to take comments from Councillor Simpkins.
Yeah, I mean, the integrated settlement is good because it gives us flexibility and so that we can deliver all our collective priorities are for the region, and that's vitally important. That's the very essence of devolution. And if I remember rightly, our first ask to the previous government was 5 billion, and we got settled with 1.1, but that's the nature of the game. I think the question that's come from Gary Perry and Morsel is really interesting about the precept. Well, I think that should be for collective leaders to have discussions with the mayor to come up with a solution for that. It'd be interesting to know, Gary, if you would vote for the precept with regards to Walsall. But I think when preempting that discussion, what we should do is sit down with the mayor and negotiate more importantly with government, because, you know, combined authorities like Manchester have had it from day one, and we can see the comparison between us and Manchester is their transport system, might I say, is better than ours at the minute. I'll caveat that. But these discussions about future funding are vitally important, especially when we're looking for people to come and invest in the West Midlands. It's important that we have a transport system, but more importantly, on the integrated settlement, it's important that we have now got the flexibility that we can put into our prioritisation for the future of this region and the growth of our citizens within the region. That's vitally important. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Simpkins. I know there are 2 more people councillors want to speak, so I'll ask them and then we'll bring the session to close. First to Councillor Burrow and then to Councillor Francis. Councillor Burrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the integrated settlement has been really well done. Basically, we had a box of bits we thought, and we've now got a strategy which hopefully will get 2 + 2 = 5 rather than 2 + 3 = 3. So I'm really looking forward to that. Our region is very mixed. Huge areas of deprivation, brownfield life. We have people who want education and training and poor housing. And from page 175, paragraph 2.4, it would appear you're getting £30 million less from the government. Now, my understanding is that is because the formula has been changed, which I find a bit surprising given what I've said before about the needs in the region. I just wonder what it is we're not going to get because we haven't got £30 million.
Councillor Burrow, I'll ask Ed to come back on the technical point, but my understanding is that we've actually got additional sums, additional buckets that will more than compensate for that, any figures you come to, including the additional funds on retrofit. But I'll ask perhaps Ed to come in on that point, Councillor Burrow.
So specifically on that point, the calculation that we have had to undertake is whether we will be at nil detriment. And what we've had to balance in that consideration is what we would have received were we outside of the integrated settlement. So if you look at the other mayoral combined authorities that do not have an integrated settlement, and you look at the funding streams that they will have received, it will be significantly lower than the 30 million that we consider to be our disadvantage compared to last year, if that makes sense. So being inside it, 30 million, given that government is cutting across the board, 30 million is actually relatively small compared to had we been sat outside of the integrated settlement. when we would have seen cuts in all of the different funding streams that we would be receiving. To give you an example, because it makes it easier to give an example, if we take the UK SPF element of the integrated settlement, nationally that has been cut by 40%. If we'd been outside of the integrated settlement, we would have received a 40% cut. But as we're going to see in the subsequent paper, we actually, the West Midlands, have only received a 70% cut to UK SPF on account of being within the integrated settlement. So to that extent, we are relatively better off than other mayoral combined authorities, notwithstanding the fact it is £30 million less than last year. That makes sense.
Thank you, Ed. I'm going to move on to Councillor Haynes, but just also for those in the room that have raised this issue, we certainly can never not have had less than we did have originally. If you like, the commitments made by the previous government were not delivered, and as we know, the Labour government inherited a 20 million black hole, some of which was represented by sums related to further devolved funding, not just to this combined with others, that was never budgeted for, and certainly not on the Financial Secretary of the Treasury's spreadsheets, which I had sight of earlier this year. But Councillor Haynes, did you want to? Councillor Francis, sorry.
Thank you very much, I'm grateful for both. I will keep this short and sweet because I know we're up against things on the agenda, but I think this integrated settlement is absolutely welcomed. We all have an important part to play in delivering those really successful actions. In brief, Birmingham's economy and place strategy sets out how we will use this new funding and how to tackle some of the long-standing issues we've got in housing and in our local economy, and to tackle some higher employment issues. Surely by working together as a region and with the Labour government, we can deliver everything in our power. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Francis, for that point. I think we've had a good discussion around the settlement. I would emphasise, whatever we think of the numbers and the way the people in this room with different views, is now a responsibility to deliver value for money and ensure that the freedoms we've got deliver better outcomes for people across the region, whether that's in Wolverhampton or Dudley or Walsall or indeed Birmingham or Solihull or Coventry. So let's move, at that point then, can we then move you to the 4 recommendations on page 173? Are those agreed? Yeah, nods, thank you very much. Thank you for those contributions, a very important agenda item. Now move on to Bus Network Support Grant, item 9. This report requests approval for an agreement to extend the current system of network support. The current scheme runs until the 1st of April, from the 1st of April 2025 to the 30th of April 2025, then allows us to implement a new scheme providing additional grant going forward. This is paid to local bus operators and runs for a period of 8 months. From May 25 to the end of this calendar year. Before I ask the Executive Director of Transport for West Midlands to present this report, can I draw members to the attention that we are considering, whilst we're considering this report, there is a private appendix on page 437. So could all members confirm that they're able, I think, make the decisions listed in the public report without explicit reference to the private information. If we do need to do that, then we'll have to hold a separate discussion. Some attending will need to leave the room. But let's proceed on the basis we can complete this discussion of this item without referencing the private matters. On that basis, let's proceed. And could I ask Anne to introduce this report? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't repeat the things that what you said in the chamber. I think there's been good acknowledgement of the importance of bus to our residents in the West Midlands as well. As you just highlighted, this report is to put in the next arrangements in terms of grant funding to keep our commercially operated services running within the similar levels that we have today. This is obviously really important for the journeys that people who rely on it to get to school and also to their places of work and other public services as well. Just to highlight, are still ongoing with the bus operators. They are coming very close to conclusion, so this report is looking to bring in delegations from myself, the Finance Director and the Monitoring Officer to finalise the grant agreement with the operators, and also subject to the advice that will come back from the subsidy control unit in terms of the finances that will be provided. So this is just to make sure that we are able to keep the network running at the current extent. Just to note, there will be some minor changes to the network, no more than about 2%, so very minimal changes, and they will happen over a four dates, so not all in one go, very small, and we're just working through the detail of that, and of course we'll make sure that the information is available to leaders, cabinet members and local councillors as well, just so that they know what is happening within their area, and also communicating that to people who are using the bus network as well. So this is really just to highlight the grant conditions that we've put in place and to confirm that we can enter into that subject to the items that are presented.
Thank you, Anne. Are there any points which we would... Councillor Hudson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Under paragraph 7.1, it references that this report went to TDOSC earlier this week. TDOSC is supportive of the approach being proposed in this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Huxtable, for those comments and the good work you do chairing that scrutiny of the panel. Thank you very much. Any other points anyone wishes to make? Okay. Thank you very much. In that case, can we move to the full recommendations on page 245? Are these agreed? Agreed? Yeah, thank you very much. So we now move on to item 10 this morning on the single assurance framework in relation to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund as part of the integrated settlement. This report seeks approval of the UK SPF single assurance framework for change request, including a time extension of 12 months to the end of March next year for the programme due to new funding awarded under the integrated settlement. This report also seeks approval to utilise the integrated settlement capital to revenue flexibilities, the onward award of funding to enable swift mobilisation of activity delegations for financial and performance oversight and management of the programme going forward. Could I ask the Interim Director of Employment Skills, Health and Communities to present the detail of this report? Oh, Ed's doing it, okay. You've got so many roles, Ed. Okay, Ed, thank you.
Well, Helen and I have put this report together, but I'm representing it here today. As you said, although this UKSPF element is effectively sitting within the integrated settlement we've just talked about, this is effectively a single year roll forward of the existing programme to the tune of £46 million, the large majority of which is double devolved to the local authorities. Nationally, as I mentioned before, there is a 40% cut to UKSPF funding, but within the integrated settlement, there is just a 17% cut for the West Midlands. However, that includes a much higher capital allocation. So under the flexibilities that we have through the integrated settlement, we are proposing to switch some of that capital to revenue, and at the request of 4 local authorities, we're proposing a £1.8 million switch as part of the proposals in front of us today. The allocations are all set out in Table 1, which is on page 261, and I'd just like to thank local authority colleagues and the finance directors in particular for working so closely with us in pulling together the detail of this report.
Thank you again, Ed, and thank you for all the officers that have worked so diligently to ensure that we're maximising the freedoms we have and the way we apply some of the additional resources devolved to us. It is all about making us relevant to our priorities as we can. Is there anyone around in the room that wishes to make any comments or raise anything on this matter? Okay, if that's the case, can we then move on to the 6 recommendations on page 255 of your report pack? Are these agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to item 11, today's agenda on devolved buildings retrofit pilots. The programme business case sets out the proposed programme of work and funding allocation we're going to apply to this buildings retrofit project or pilot. It represents one of the 5 pillars of the integrated settlement negotiated part of our Trailblazer deal with government. And I'm going to go back to Ed, I believe, to introduce this report. Ed.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another big leap forward for devolution policy in England. The system to date has meant that homeowners, local authorities, housing associations, and anybody wanting to carry out energy efficiency measures on their homes has to enter into a competitive bidding process for relatively tiny amounts of funding in order to retrofit their houses or their public buildings. Vast amounts of bureaucracy are involved in dealing with the administration of bids and the administration of funding. And that has meant that the private sector has generally been unwilling to invest in its supply chains or in skills development to kind of bolster that scattergun approach that we've had. And it's left us in a situation where in the West Midlands we have the highest rates of fuel poverty in the whole of England. What we're going to do now, through the integrated settlement and through this devolved buildings retrofit pilot, is to develop a completely new approach. We will be able to pre-allocate the funding, the £168 million worth of funding that we have been granted over now a 3-year period rather than a 3-month or 6-month period, in order to cut out all bidding and be able to enable our local authorities and our housing providers to build pipelines of properties that they want to retrofit. This will give us as well a lot more flexibility about exactly which types of property that we want to retrofit as well. Local authorities will be able to choose effectively how they're going to approach. And also it means that we will be able to bring forward match funding into some of these programmes. We've identified up to £80 million of match funding will be secured against what we're proposing here. And then crucially, it also enables us to put funding into building delivery capacity so that our local authorities and indeed the combined authority will be able to build its own capacity to be able to deliver these programmes, but also, and perhaps more importantly, to build the capacity of the private market, the supply chains, to be able to grow the skills that we need to facilitate that retrofit on the different properties. So this report particularly details how we're going to spend 15% of the total amount in order to allocate that in a double devolved way to local authorities so that they can build the capacity to develop those pipelines from day one of this work.
Thank you, Ed, for that very clear statement. Just on the capacity issue, when I was at Friar Park in Sandwell visiting some homes that benefited from previous round of year's funding, the contractor was very clear to me about the benefits of longer term funding and the investments they need to make, because they're very clear the biggest challenge they faced on delivering their programme in the West Midlands was the difficulty in recruiting people, the skills they need to do the work, which is something for all of us is an absolute priority. So thank you, Ed, and Councillor Simpkins.
Yeah, you take that point about the skills deficit. I think there should be a big portion set aside for the autonomy of local authorities to actually work with the colleges and work with the universities and our schools to bridge that skills deficit. And I think if anything that comes out of the pilot scheme, that when it's all done and dusted, that skills question should be at the forefront. It would be great if we could move along the green innovation corridor, then we'd have the private sector working with the public sector, so they can actually not just develop the retrofit itself, bringing the benefits to everything, but the skills and the jobs and the education that moves forward. It'd be great if we could have put the green innovation corridor in place, but I'm always going to say that I'm it's all from Wolverhampton and board. It is that skills bracket of this that actually pays us back dividends, because that's about the quality of life through a good, high-paid job in the West Midlands. And I think what we should do on the back of that, make a case to government of making the West Midlands the green college or university of the country, because I think our entrepreneurial history and our industrial history will lend itself to this new technologies that's coming forward. So I really welcome this, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Simpkins. I'll also just want to say that one of the single mothers that was renting one of the homes I visited in Trial Park is actually now working for the contractor. So the benefits of that programme were obvious to see. It's simply not just about improving the energy efficiency of homes. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to agree with the wholeheartedly with the leader of Wolverhampton City Council. I think if retrofitting is done properly, I think it can create an industry in this country that can employ thousands and thousands of people for a very long time indeed. We are not going to be able to replace all the houses that aren't up to standard, and the retrofit is what we're going to have to do. We're very keen on this in Walsall, and we are very keen on not just supporting our RSLs with this particular scheme, but also supporting private homes in order to access this kind of funding in order to improve their homes. You know, there's a lot of people that might own their own homes, but they have not got the disposable income in order to make their homes more efficient, more carbon neutral, and better and cheaper for themselves to run and to reduce their bills and to make their homes better. And that's what we're very much in favour of in Walsall.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. I look forward to working with you and the leader at the council to ensure this scheme delivers the maximum number of benefits, not just the skills and energy efficiency, but hopefully it will improve the well-being and health of many of those homeowners and those tenants too. Councillor Courts.
Yes, I mean, it's great that we have complete unity around the chamber, because this is one of the most important things, frankly, we can do. And I think it's one of the most important achievements that this combined authority and the officers have made in getting the continuity of funding for the reasons which you said, Mr. Mayor. You know, small companies, there's a lot of small companies, they're not going to take on people unless they've got that continuity of the supply chain. But just a thought, which is on the learning, the skills and stuff like that. I can't remember the number, Ed will tell me off because I should know it, but the number of homes in this region that need retrofitting. Has anybody given thought to the prospect or possibility of something like a retrofit academy, show up, so that we can demonstrate best practice in how these things are done? Because you know what, it's another one of the, we want success, but success brings more money.
Thank you, Councillor Courts, for those comments, and also the work you've done over a number of years that have helped us develop our approach and thinking to this really important issue. The issue of a skills academy, I think, is very, very attractive, but also given the opportunities, I think we also need to look at the ways in which we can speed up the training and the upskilling necessary to our people, so we can deliver the maximum benefit to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. Councillor Evans.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to pick up on an earlier point, and I certainly wasn't saying anything about people who privately owned road and down at disposable income, I agree, absolutely. I was talking about the private sector landlords who, to the best of my knowledge, probably make more money than anybody else that rents properties, certainly within Wolverhampton. But my point being is retrofit doesn't all, everybody always thinks it's about new heating systems and so on. You know, we've done a lot of retrofit, which has been external insulation this time. And whilst, yes, there's opportunities for, you know, creating jobs, trading, etc., there is already companies out there. I think what we have to be mindful of is the skills are not in abundance and the market rates have been steadily growing. And I know this is a pilot. I heard Ed talk about the timelines and so on, but we do need to be mindful. There's an awful lot of work going to be coming at some point with fire safety regulations, with damp mould and condensation regulations and AWAC's law. You know, it ain't going to be too long before there's a big building programme of some sorts, and before we know it, we're going to struggle to find the skills. So my colleague's point is well made, because we'll be wasting most of the money on the skills and not the material gain for the properties. But I welcome the report. I am going to say a bit further on, when the pilot comes back here, that we do need to take into account, for example, in Wolverhampton, we've got 4,500 what we call non-traditional social housing properties. At least half of those, it is not viable to look at retrofit. We are probably going to have to consider demolition and rebuild. And I would like, at some point further down the line, that when we review this pilot, that we start talking about neighbourhood regeneration and renewal, because retrofit will work for a number of properties. It won't be viable for the others, and we can't leave those behind. That's my only point.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Points very well made, and I think I would like to see the officers across the region working on, if you like, a skills strategy to support this project. I think that would be really, really important. And like you, I acknowledge the fact that there are many homes in this region that are not fit for purpose now. They may be more fit for purpose with the investment we're talking about, but many fall outside that category and they should remain a priority too. Councillor Harley?
Yes, very quickly, Mr Mayor, agree with what colleagues have said around the chamber. This report is very much welcomed. I'm looking at the figures just for Dudley, 6.3 for homes and 3.5 for public sector buildings. And what's important is we get to decide where we're going to do that work, as does Wolverhampton, Walsall, South and everywhere else.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Harley, and I'm very pleased that you support the approach you outlined. I'm going to Councillor Burrow and then Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. OSC looked at this and strongly supported the proposal. What we asked officers to look at was an integration between this and the adult education spend, because we've seen the success of some of the construction, short construction training sessions that are being financed by the Combined Authority, and that model would appear to work well on this side as well. These are level 2 skills. We've got lots of people who would benefit from good jobs in this area. These will be good long-term jobs, and if we can model that, and if we can call it Council Courts Academy, if you like, or integrate it into Wolverhampton, Green Corridor, it doesn't really matter where we do it, as long as we just do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Burrow, and also for all the work you're doing in your scrutiny role. And I fully agree with the points that you've made. We would have lost a big opportunity if we don't align programmes like this to the skills agenda that we also support in this region. And it's helping people to upskill, young people get jobs is one of the best ways we can improve the prospects and the living standards of people across this region. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, we were talking about future skills deficits. There are skills deficits now. Even local authorities are struggling to recruit some of their more technical roles, and we've really started, to start filling those gaps. The Mayor will know that the Sandwell College actually recently opened in the last 12 months a new STEM college there, and they've actually extended their provision beyond the initial building that was funded through the Towns Fund. And it's on the basis of technical skills that there are gaps, and we're talking to them in license retrofits as well. We strongly put our hands up on the County Court Academy. I think Sam would like to have the base of an academy, and if we could take it in as the League of Wolverhampton said at the university, we certainly need the university campus to make it attractive for local young people to get themselves out of unemployment and onto some of these things.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes, and other comments made. Before I move on, I will bring Ed back in again, but I think it's fantastic that, thank you for the officers and the leaders that have worked so hard on this proposition. We now need to work together to ensure that the benefits are spread as widely across this region as possible. Ed, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, very simply to say that I'm hearing you absolutely loud and clear in this chamber about the need to develop the skills element of this. We are already thinking very much about that, and we will really double down on that now going forward. 2 points. One is that the integrated settlement will again make it much, much easier now to align the skills funding with the retrofit funding. So that's another huge opportunity for us. But it's very interesting that one of the problems we've had historically with colleges putting on retrofit courses is that the demand hasn't been there, because young people haven't seen that there is £168 million going into this particular sector. I think now the long-term funding, the approach that we're taking, will give them much greater confidence that these kind of courses that they might want to go on will actually lead to long-term jobs. So it's really crucial that we've got this new approach from that point of view. Just one specific thing in terms of Councillor Evans' question about measures and heating systems and so on, alongside the flexibility in terms of tenure type that we can now put forward for retrofit schemes, we also have much greater flexibility about the kind of measures that can be put in place in different homes as well. So that's another benefit of the new scheme.
Thank you, Ed, and also Councillor Jane France myself visited a property in Bordsey Green in Birmingham recently, and to my amazement, a fairly modest level of intervention has improved the efficiency and the warmth of that home, and it doesn't always need to be a lot of funding. A very small targeted amount of interventions can make a very, very big difference. Councillor Court.
Sorry to come back in on this, but this is not just about courses, it's about expertise. And it may sound, I'm obviously an ex-builder, and it's actually extremely difficult sometimes to do some retrofit because every house is different, even if they look the same. So expertise is a real thing. There's another complicated issue on this, which is if you're bringing apprentices and young people into this, it's transport, it's how do they get to the site? So there's a geographical context to this as well. It may fit around east, west and whatever, but I would like, I'm going to come back to those words I said about retrofit academy, which some of it will be virtual, some of it physical. I think there's something here we must do, and I want to have further discussion. I'd like a briefing from Ed on the art of possible here.
Thank you, Councillor Courts. I think that's a fantastic idea, so thank you for raising it, and others have raised similar issues. I'll bring this discussion to a close at this point. So can I ask you now to move to the 4 recommendations on page 267 of your report, Are these agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you very much. And now move on, and reasonably good time, got speedily through the remaining items if we could. I know a number of you need to be somewhere else this afternoon. The next item 12, is the West Midlands Economic Development Review. This report seeks approval for a number of measures to drive the ongoing implementation of the reforms that support economic delivery across this region. The board agreed the commencement of this work in November last year. These recommendations are designed to continue to make the progress we need at good speed, whilst maintaining the pace of delivery in terms of investment, attracting inward investment and delivering growth across this region. And the report also gives this board direct accountability over the West Midlands Growth Company. I'm delighted that with the work that Councillor Courts and Councillor Carmichael have done supporting this work, they provided the political intelligence and oversight of this work. So thank you very much to both of them for the commitment they've made to this very important item. I didn't know whether or not, Ian, you're in the room, whether you wanted to make any comments at this point.
I think you've heard too much from me today, but as I've was responsible, I really want to thank first of all the officers for the systematic approach they've adopted towards quite a complex issue. I mean, there is the issue of how we do it, but there's also the growth plan coming into it, and we've still got a lot of work to do on this. I mean, my focus is always going to be how do we promote the 7 Mets and the region as a whole with you know, what we have, the strengths we have. I'm not really interested in, I never have plans and strategies I struggle with. What I'm interested in seeing promoting a vibrant region that is good for investment, good for, and is going to deliver jobs. And that's what I've tried to do. So I should, you know, as far as I'm involved, I should continue to do that and to see how we can market the strengths of this region to the maximum. One thing I would say, and I regard this as really important, it's quite easy to get lost into the, you know, the gloss of a beautiful high-tech industry, and we're a fantastic region for innovation and skills. We have wonderful universities, and the ideas and stuff that come here is incredible. With, you know, the birth of the Industrial Revolution, and indeed I think we are doing the Green Industrial Revolution very well also. But I would say I'm really not interested in economic growth for economic growth. You know, it's for what we can do for all of our residents in the West Midlands. That's what I want to see happen, as well as improve our environment as well. 3-sided coin that we always talk about. And in that thing, I've made the point that it isn't just about inward investment. It's also about how we get people jobs, and jobs, for instance, in hospitality, often called the everyday economy. How we, you know, look at our high streets. There's a lot of jobs available in the high street, because that will deliver jobs much more quickly than other things. So we must not lose focus on that, nor on the service sector, the social service sector. I sort of insisted that in our work we focus on all of those things. But my thanks to the team, as I say, and I hope members will support this. This is what this combined authority, Mr. Mayor, is all about.
Thank you very much, Ian, for those comments and your work. Perhaps, Peter, you could take my thanks back to Kerry. And Ian, you're absolutely right about the purpose of this. We do need to drive the growth and the prosperity of everyone in this region, but we must ensure that we provide opportunities and jobs to these young people that have felt overlooked and left behind for too long and feel excluded from economic and social life of this region. Ed, it feels like the Ian Courts and Cox show a bit today, but do you want to just introduce the work that you've led on? Thank you.
Well, you heard too much from Councillor Courts. You've definitely heard too much from me. I think it was absolutely right that you both make sure that we don't miss the wood for the trees. And this report ultimately is about how we make sure we've got the right delivery functions in place in order to unlock that economic growth and the growth plan which will be coming forward in the weeks and months ahead. So I'll just focus on the boring bit, which is the kind of the weeds of this, which is that the report is specifically about changes to the West Midlands Growth Company. It's particularly to ensure that the Growth Company will now report directly into this board, and this board will set the strategic direction for the Growth Company. It's also to do with agreeing the Growth Company's delivery priorities for the coming year. It is to endorse changes to the board during the coming year, and particularly to set out arrangements to recruit a new chair as it transitions to an economic delivery bit. So those are the specifics here.
Okay, I know Councillor Simpkins wants to come in, but I just wondered whether Neil Romney, Chief Exec of the Growth Company, wanted to make any comments. I know you've gone through a very difficult period, Neil, and thank you for all the work you've done and the support you've given us and the work you're doing now with Ed and the team at the Combined Authority. Very grateful for that, and for the great work you're doing helping put the Regional Investment Summit in place. But I didn't know at this point, Neil, you wanted to say anything.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, probably in the interest of time will be brief, but I do want to thank Councillor Courts, Councillor Conway, and obviously Ed and the team. We very much welcome the changes. We see a huge opportunity to join the dots, which is really what I think Ian was alluding to. There's no point in attracting investment into the area. It's not going to have a wide-reaching impact that we all need it to have. The only point I would make, which perhaps is more positive, one that Councillor Forrest talked about, this not being about strategy plans and delivery. We've just had the Q3 results coming to the end of this period, and the pipeline remains very strong and interest remains very, very strong in the region. Our job numbers will be as good as they've ever been, as will our investment projects. Some of the capital investment projects are not quite landing in the timeline that we want, but I think some of the discussion we've heard from the Chamber today will help that. It's about moving those major projects along. But we very much welcome it, and I have to say I think the team has transitioned very quickly. We've streamlined as we've had to. But the opportunities, I would suggest, are not to wait over the next 12 months, but to move some of the other functions into a more integrated position over those 12 months so that we can move as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Neil. And I know you've asked me to come and speak to your team, and I will as soon as possible to thank them for their work and to stress the importance of the work they're doing now. And thank you very much for helping through this. Yeah, I know at some points it's been quite a difficult transition. Councillor Simpkins and then Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I want to actually support something down like what's been said and what's been mentioned there. Ian's always been passionate and committed to this, as is Kerry. But me and Ian have got an undertaking to do the other side of the economy, and I think what we should do is square the circle, liaise with Kerry so that we're more seen off the same sheet. In the spirit of cutting out red tape and bureaucracy, I think it would be best if we collaborate with the three rather than just the two. Well, I'll leave that decision to Ian. He's the guiding star with regards to this. And because it's our passionate about it, as we all are, well, I think it should be really important that we do then formulate a report, come back and have regular updates on the progress that's made. And that's what we should be focusing on, is the progress. And that's, like the interest, every time economy or growth, for growth's sake, I would like it for us to actually have a remit of sustainability and firm foundations moving forward, because that's the way we can be resilient in the region rather than being reliant on external forces and the economy. God knows where else. If we build, like we built in that industrial revolution process, firm foundations, I think that's the way that we should be. And we should have long-term plans, not just look at political cycles. We should look at what's good for our residents in the future. That's what's so exciting. What we all do as elected members is to opt to build people's futures in a positive way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Simpkins, and all the work you're doing on the growth agenda across this region. I'm going to read Councillor Harley and then Ian, of course. Ian's okay.
Again, very quickly, Mr. Mayor. Growth company often gets a rough deal from elected members. But I found that the more leaders and chief execs get involved and engaged with the growth company, the more the relevant authorities will get out of it. And we're on the really something really big. I believe if it hadn't been for Neil and his team, I don't think we'd get to deal over the line. But welcome the report, and it's a step in the right direction.
Thank you very much for those kind words, Councillor Harley. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I think I just want to echo those points. I'm also supportive of the report, and I totally agree with what's just been said. I think the more that local authorities engage with the growth company, because it is a two-way relationship, the more that we can all get out of it for the better of the region and to promote growth across the place that we all represent.
Thank you, Councillor Coles.
Yes, just to come back to I support what Councillor Simpson has said, and indeed what Sharon has just said, because there are 7 Mets, we've all got a hell of a lot to offer. We all complement and work together very well, and then it's just making sure we harness that moving forward. I think that suggestion made is excellent, and my thanks also, and my apologies to Neil and the team in a difficult situation for the great work that they have done, and the day jobs had to go on with all this, and is going on, and that's what's good.
Thank you, Councillor Courts. And I think what has impressed me most and pleased me most in the role as Mayor is the collaboration and the team spirit and the work ethic of the council leaders and their commitment to working together. So thank you very much for that. And also, Neil, also want to, if you could pass on my thanks to Chris Lau and your team. One of Neil's team has been working with me on my trip to China, and I know it's an enormous amount of work to help with the itinerary and the briefing I've got. So if you can pass on my thanks, I'd be thank you very much. Okay, thank you for that discussion, everyone. I'll now move on to the 4 recommendations on page 281 of your report. Are these agreed? Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the item 13, if we could, on the State of the Region report. Ed will introduce this again, or will introduce this. It's a high-level review of the economic situation of the region. It's, I understand it's produced on an annual basis, and the data always remains at least a 12-month lag on it. As well as the content of the report, I've just emphasised to officers that the region has faced some challenges in the past, and some of those are captured in some of the data. But it's the work we're doing in this board that is making a difference to people's lives, and it's the actions we're taking as a group of leaders and addressing some of the issues raised in the report that makes our work so important. I'm sorry, it's actually Laura, the Chief Executive. My papers are always slightly out of date, but Laura, do you want to introduce the report?
Yes, absolutely, and I'm very conscious of time. And it is a State of the Region report. I do want to highlight some of the data lags. It's national data, and so just to make sure that people are conscious of this is not a performance report about the region or anybody in it. What it is a snapshot of the available data, and again, as I just pointed out, it's not very much real-time data. But it is really helpful for us to understand how we think about this collectively. It also helps us chart our ambitions around where we're able to deliver around inclusive growth. But probably the most important thing is how we take it and go forward and think about how, as the Mayor said, it shapes our policies and strategies. So it's in that context that as a helpful snapshot of the data as we have it, that it's presented here today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Laura. Are there any points or questions? Councillor Grimshaw, welcome to Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Laura, for the report. I think it's really useful evidence base and a picture, you know, evidence for us all to see, and it's always very interesting when you look through it and sort of things jump out at you as your authority, what you're doing, but then other things, and you learn something new every time you read it. I think just going on that evidence base, maybe we're now getting to a point where we could use some recommendations from this report, pick up some of those sort of key issues that are highlighted. I mean, obviously, we've got other reports and other plans that we connect to. But then we can obviously monitor progress. So I thought, how do we use it? Because my fear is we do it every year. It probably just sort of goes back on a shelf somewhere, and then we push it off. So how do we use what we learn to move forward, as Laura said, but get some tangible results for us forward and take the learning, you know, the best practice across the region, take the learning from it.
Thank you very much. I couldn't agree more with you, and I've discussed this with Laura and Ed. We need to, and what I will suggest is that at one of the future leaders meetings we'll discuss the report and the outcomes and how we develop that into recommendations and actions going forward. If we're not doing that, we're not doing the right thing, in my view. So thank you very much, Councillor Prince. Councillor Hughes, I want to move this item forward quite quickly, but Councillor Hughes and one other maximum. Councillor Hughes.
I think what we can learn from this report is that it demonstrates that historically some of the approaches and decisions taken before your tenure has meant that some places in the region are actually lagging behind in some key areas linked to deprivation and levels of growth. This is one of them. With you now at the helm, how can we ensure that the work of the combined authority supports those places most in need so that we can start some of these improvements?
Thank you, Councillor Hughes, for the kind words. We're working collectively, I think all of us as leaders, to address the issues in the report, and to come back to what I think Councillor Grinsell quite rightly said, we will look at picking up on the actions and do some recommendations and ensure that what we're doing through the integrated assessment on our priorities are addressing the issues in here and helping us turn a page to build a better future for the people of the West Midlands. Well, Councillor Harley, then I'll...
Thanks, Richard. Just a small criticism. It says that, particularly in Dudley, that the economic growth has surpassed pre-pandemic levels, but there's no figures for Dudley. There are some other authorities. I looked at the report, so it would be nice, I think, Mr. Mayor, that in future, if we could list the actual figures for each authority.
Agreed, certainly. As time is running out, then let's move this item forward. Can we move this to recommendations on 281? Agreed, thank you very much. So, we'll now move swiftly to item 14, Audit Risk and Assurance Committee. Mark Smith has arrived. Thank you, Mark. And then, like me, you almost went to the wrong location this morning, but we thought we'd surprise you. And,
no, I did go to the wrong location. None of you joined me at Birmingham.
Thank you, Mark. Could you, I believe you chaired the meeting, is there anything you want to say or bring to our attention from the Audit Risk and Assurance Committee held on the 3rd of February?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it very brief. Sadly, we were not quorus at this meeting. We had 6 out of 7 constituent members represented, but none of the 4 non-constituent members, and in the non-constituent members are voting members. Therefore, we don't have a presence on them, we end up being on quorum. So, disappointing to note, and hopefully we'll do better next time. Pleasing to note finalisation of the accounts for the year ending March 24 in advance to the deadline by the end of February. The main body of our meeting was considering Treasury management policy, strategy and procedures. There weren't any significant changes being proposed, but we were pleased to recommend them, and you considered them earlier in the agenda today. I would just yet again flag what a significant positive contribution the Treasury management activities are making to the financial position of the authority. The other matter I was just going to note was that my 4-year term as chairing this committee comes to an end this September, so the process for identification of my successor has commenced and hopefully will be in place by the end of September this year. That was it for me.
Thank you very much, Mark, and for all the work you're doing and the clarity, the feedback you're presenting and continue to present to this board. Can I ask that the minutes of this meeting are noted? Is this agreed? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Simpkins.
It would be wrong for us not to thank Mark for all the hard work and diligence that have put up with a lot of elected members, which is always challenging, and I speak as one. But he's done an absolute sterling job, to be fair, and he's held us to account, not just at the CA, but also when the contributions come from the local authorities. And again, we have the spectre of not being quorate. So I hope that we get somebody, which will be difficult, as diligent, as professional as yourself, but please look at governance to change these archaic rules. It would make life a lot easier for us all, but well done, and thank you very much for your commitment for the last 4 years.
Thank you. I think we might see you again, Mark, but at least once, won't we?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Can we just ask the minutes to agree? Good. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the overview and scrutiny committee held on the 3rd of March this year. Can I ask Councillor Burren, who chaired the meeting, if there's anything he wants to bring to the attention of the board today?
I think I brought to the attention of the board all the relevant comments. We were porous, we continue to be porous, which is very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burrell. Again, thank you very much for the good work you're doing chairing that scrutiny board. I'll now move on to item 16, which is the forward plan. This sets out the key decisions the combined authority will be asked to make during the next 6 months, and is included within the agenda for members' information only. I'll just ask the Director of Law and Governance if there's anything she wants to add with regard to the plan. Nothing, thank you. Can we then all note the board comments? Councillor Huxtable.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note on the 9th of May, 2025, we're proposing that Birmingham Eastside Metro Extension for business case approval is coming forward for consideration by the board. Could I request that the Executive Director of Transport gives myself and my committee a full briefing on this one, given its importance in terms of transport connectivity. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do that, Councillor Huxtable, no problem. In that case, can we therefore note the forward plan? Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Thank you everyone this morning. The date of the next meeting, Friday 9th of March. I believe that we'll be back in the Council House, Mark. That's the plan of City Council. Sorry, May, sorry, I'm going ahead of myself. To be clarified, Friday 9th of May at 11 AM. Thank you for everyone for coming to Wolverhampton today and your contributions. Have a great weekend. Thank you.